ask your blessing upon him and his family, Father. We ask, Lord, that he would walk worthy of the calling that you have upon his life. Lord, we thank you for his service to our country. Father, his service in the military, and we thank you for all those who have served us, Lord, and for our first responders, Lord, for all our military, Lord. We ask your blessing upon all of them. And Lord, we just ask that you would protect him, protect his family, Lord. Give him wisdom and discernment and revelation, Lord, and just be with him, Lord, as you bless his way from here forward. We thank you, Father. We give you all the glory in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
All right, if you guys could stand and remove your hats, and we'll go with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. And I'm going to now pass the mic over to Representative Gerhold to welcome everybody and say a few things.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out on this snowy day. I guess it's part of the 12 days of Christmas, so Merry Christmas with the snow. Great to be here. Glad you're here. So I'm going to brag a little bit on Governor DeSantis. I think he is a wonderful conservative. He has a proven record. All you have to do is look at what he's done in Florida. He's lowered crime. He's lowered unemployment. He's turned it from a purple state into a deep red state. He has done a fantastic job of leading. He's very similar to our own governor, Governor Kim Reynolds, so I'm proud of both of them. And I'm proud to endorse him, and hopefully he will have a wonderful showing in the caucuses here in a short time. So I'm so proud of him. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce another speaker. He's a state senator from South Carolina, Senator Josh Kimbrell. So come on out.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you. And Merry Christmas. Good to be with y'all. So I've already heard y'all once tonight. Thank you. I thought that was just a South kind of thing, you know. So can we say y'all in Iowa? That's okay? Y'all? So I'm glad to be in Iowa. And I will tell you, I did not bring the snow, though I'm happy that it's here. That's a great thing during the Christmas season. A lot of people have kind of asked, why is a South Carolina senator in Iowa today? A South Carolina senator is in Iowa today because a former governor of South Carolina has been in Iowa occasionally. And I will tell you that South Carolina is a red state. Everybody says we're the reddest of the red states. That was true until Florida became probably redder, and now we're trying to catch back up. Now, we have not voted for a Democrat for president since 1976. Okay, we got Carter. We realized that was really bad. We've never voted Democrat again, ever. And we are a state like Iowa that helps pick presidents. Y'all are the first, and we're the first in the South. So I'll clap for that, too. Y'all started off up here, and when we call them out down in South Carolina. So what we got to make sure is that Ron DeSantis wins Iowa and South Carolina. And the reason I'm here today is because our state is a red state, but it's redder because of Governor DeSantis being governor of Florida than Nikki Haley being governor of South Carolina. Yep. That's true. And I can tell you that as a native South Carolinian. I was asked by a reporter earlier today, they said, Senator, do you not feel some state pride? I said, I have a lot of state pride. My entire family's from South Carolina. I literally have direct lineage to Revolutionary War soldiers in my family. My entire family's been in the state since the 1740s. So I am a very proud South Carolinian. But here's what I'm proud of is what South Carolina stands for. And Governor DeSantis stands better for South Carolina values than Nikki Haley stood for South Carolina values. And that's unequivocal. That's completely true. Because in Florida, he stood up for parental rights. He stood up for... He stood up for the notion that you can raise your kids better than a government bureaucrat can. He stood up for the radical notion there are two genders in the United States of America. We shouldn't be teaching a 4-year-old to change their gender. He has stood up to cut taxes and promote school choice. In a state, by the way, that has no income tax, he still cut taxes. That's pretty dang good. Now, in South Carolina, we have passed multiple school choice bills. We have passed parental rights bills. We have done most of the things that Florida has done, and I can tell you why we've done it. Because my Senate lawyer in Columbia asked me one day, said, Senator, is basically your attitude is every time Ron DeSantis does something, you just introduce the same bill? I said, you're darn right. So South Carolina's redder because Ron DeSantis was governor of Florida, and we emulated what Ron DeSantis did. And I told my wife, she said, wouldn't it be great if we could have Ron DeSantis as governor of South Carolina like he's been governor of Florida? I said, well, pretty sure you can't be governor of 2 states at the same time. Yeah. But you can be president of the United States of America. Right. 2 times. That's a good point, right? Somebody else can't be president of the United States 2 more times. We won't say who that is, Donald Trump. But here's the reality. We have one chance to win this election and change the country. One chance. Because if you get Nikki Haley, you're going to get a lot of political spin. And I say that as a South Carolinian. I have nothing personal against her. It's not a personal thing for me. She's a nice lady if you meet her, depending on which version you meet. I mean, all of them are nice. It's just which version of the policy positions you're going to get. We don't need somebody who's going to listen to Jamie Dimon at Citigroup on what needs to be the policy of the United States. I really don't care what Jamie Dimon at Citigroup thinks about you raising your kids or what kind of economy we're going to have. Can we all agree on that? Yeah. And so Jamie Dimon came out and said, well, he's for Nikki Haley. I said, well, great. That makes me even more for Ron DeSantis. Right. We're in a very critical moment in this country's history. We all know it. We all feel it, right? We all know it. The sign that y'all have on the table says it, God over government. God over government. Donald Trump did good things for the country, but at the end of the day, I don't think he can win in 2024. He can't win. And 4 more years of this administration we've got right now, we're not going to recognize this country. Our freedoms are going to be shot. And even if you get 4 more years of Donald Trump, we need 8 years to drain the swamp. And we need somebody who's not going to talk about draining the swamp, but knows how to pull the plug. And there's only one person in this race that's actually fired these George Soros-backed prosecutors, and that was the governor of Florida. And we need more of that kind of aggression to not only talk about draining the swamp, but do it. So I'm here tonight to beg y'all, as the first in the nation, I'm going to go ahead and just bow to the Iowa. First in the nation, all right, please make Ron DeSantis the Iowa winner so I can finish it off in South Carolina and we can beat Nikki Haley in her home state and make Ron DeSantis the next president of the United States of America. So without further ado, the 47th President of the United States, Governor Ron DeSantis.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh. Thanks so much. Great to be back in Iowa. Thanks so much. Hope you all had a Merry Christmas. It's good to be back. We were able to be home in Florida, a little bit different temperature down there, even in North Florida and Tallahassee. The kids did well. I must say that Santa had a little bit difficulty wrapping so many presents, but you know the kids opened it up so quickly, no one even noticed. So I was happy to see that, and we're back up, and we're excited to be able to bring this in for a landing on January 15th, and we want your support. This is important. This has an opportunity. You have an opportunity in Iowa to change the trajectory of this country. The media seems to think you guys shouldn't even vote. They think they should be able to pick who the candidate is. And they're not wanting to pick the candidate that's going to do the best for us in November of 2024. Just so you know, the media does not want to see conservative policies implemented on the national level. So we have an opportunity to make our voice heard. And this is really, really special. We've gone to all 99 counties. We've answered questions. We've talked to folks. We understand the pulse of this state, and those values will be values that I take to the White House and govern as a strong. I mean, we really needed somebody else like Ronald Reagan for 2 terms, winning big and really changing the trajectory. So that's what we're going to do. And we are really at a moment where this needs to happen now. Look what they're doing to this country. They're indoctrinating our kids. They're corrupting institutions. They're weaponizing law enforcement. They are perverting universities.
They are doing things with the economy to try to impose their agenda. They've allowed an invasion in this country across our southern border. They're facilitating the destruction of major cities because of runaway homelessness and crime and drug use. On issue after issue, the left and the Democratic Party are damaging this country. They are damaging our communities. And if left unabated, they are going to absolutely destroy this country over the next 4 years. We cannot let that happen. I'm the only one running. All the people that are doing this to this country, I'm the only one that has beaten them time and time again in the state of Florida. If you look what we've done, we beat the teachers' unions in the state of Florida. A lot. We beat them on COVID by having kids in school. They sued me. I won. We beat them on universal school choice. They fought us. We won, and we now have more school choice than any state in the country. And then most recently, we made sure that teachers didn't have automatic union dues deduction. They have to write a check if they want to join. Many have chosen not to. So Miami-Dade County, the most populous county, that union is going to be decertified in the state of Florida. So we've empowered teachers to do what's right, to fight the special interests. It's not right to have an organization that's trying to use our schools to promote a left-wing agenda. We're the only ones in this country that have fought back against those folks and have won time and time again. I'll do the same thing as President of the United States. We also have defeated people like Fauci when it has come to COVID. And now you look at what happened, and all the things I was doing when I was taking so much heat in 2020, all these people attacking me, that's fine. I mean, I can take the attacks. Now, though, people won't admit that they oppose what we did in Florida. They don't want to be associated with the lockdown policies or the school close. They want to act like they supported having this stuff open all along. That was not true. They also tried to, the federal government, Joe Biden, signed an executive edict saying that you would lose your job unless you got a COVID shot that was under emergency use. He had no authority to do that. What kind of a country is it when a president can sign an executive order and prevent you from putting food on the table for your family just because you've chosen not to take one of these experimental shots? We fought back against that, and we beat Biden on that. We beat Biden and protected our nurses. We beat Fauci on all of these different things. They're going to try to do this again in the future. I'm the only one running for president that's going to bring a reckoning to these people to make sure that this doesn't happen to our country ever again and that people are held accountable for what they did. We've beat George Soros when it comes to crime. Josh mentioned we have 2 prosecutors who were elected with Soros funding, the whole progressive ideology, didn't think they had to enforce laws they disagreed with, and that's happening all over this country, and you're seeing crime surge because people are able to get away with committing crimes in places like Chicago and Los Angeles. Well, in Florida, I did something about it. I removed both of them from their posts. They are gone. We fought back, and we won. And not only that, we've backed the men and women of law enforcement. We've provided support and funding. We even have a program for new recruits into law enforcement in Florida, get a $5,000 signing bonus. So I got people coming from Chicago and Seattle and New York wanting to come in the state of Florida. And it's not just about the money. What they say is they're actually appreciated in Florida because we've created a culture of law and order, and the result is very clear. Our crime rate is now at a 50-year low in the state of Florida, even while it's going up in so many of these other urban areas across the country. We beat the Democrats on election integrity. Florida 25 years ago was a joke when it came to elections. Hanging chads, this, that, all these other things. Since I've been governor, we cleaned house. We made sure some of these supervisors of election in places like Palm Beach were not going to be able to mess around with these elections anymore. We banned ballot harvesting in Florida. We banned Zuckerbucks. We have universal voter ID. We even have an agency in state government whose sole responsibility is to investigate and prosecute voter fraud. The result has been the last 2 elections, Florida has run the most transparent and efficient elections anywhere in the country. And you're talking about 12 million votes, 9 million votes, depending on the year. It's a lot of votes. And yet, how are we able to count the votes and produce the result by midnight on election night while some of these other states are taking 3 days, 4 days, 2 weeks to be able to do it? The Democrats fought us on this. We stood up. We got it right. And people have confidence in Florida that their vote matters and that their vote counts. And if people try to violate the law, we hold them accountable and we bring prosecutions against them. That's what should be happening all across this country. We also beat the far left by banning China from purchasing land in the state of Florida. No farmland, no land near military bases, no land near critical infrastructure. The ACLU sued us. As a result of that, we're winning, and we're going to win to make sure that our state is protected. That should be the law everywhere in this country. Why would we want an adversary to be able to come in and swoop up farmland or camp out land near military bases? It's not good. I know in South Carolina, Haley brought in a lot of Chinese companies when she was governor and even gave land 5 miles from Fort Jackson, a military base in South Carolina. We're not doing that in Florida. That's not the way you do it. So we've won on that issue. We're going to win on that issue nationally. It's very, very important. We've also beat the left when it comes to ensuring the rights of parents and ensuring that our schools are about educating kids, not indoctrinating kids. We have a first grader, a kindergartner, and a pre-K3 at home. So my wife and I, we're just sensitive what parents are going through. We think as a parent, you should be able to send your kid to school, let them watch cartoons, just be kids without having an agenda shoved down their throat. It is wrong to teach a first grader that they can change genders. It's wrong to teach a third grader that they were born in the wrong body. And we fought for that. We made sure that we protected the rights of parents. We had legislation that came down the pike that we supported, but we faced opposition. Faced opposition from the media, of course. We faced opposition from the left, of course, but we even faced opposition from our state's most powerful corporation, Disney. And they came out against. Most people said there's no way you're going to be able to win. They're just too powerful. You just have to back down. Well, listen, I didn't take an oath to subcontract out my leadership to a woke corporation based in California. I stand for the parents. I stand for the kids. And we won that battle, and we did what was right. And we have to make sure that going forward in this country, our schools are not used as tools for indoctrination. The left does not have a right to impose their agenda on our kids. And we got to do like we did in Florida all across the country. We also have to do like we did in Florida with higher education. You see these universities where you have these students protesting in favor of Hamas, terrorists. You see all kinds of anti-Americanism, anti-Jew, anti-Israel sentiment at our universities. That didn't happen by accident. There's a sickness in these institutions. I mean, you have the president of Harvard plagiarizes, and yet she's still there. And it's like, okay, this is all about how you fit into the DEI sweepstakes rather than whether you're somebody that's actually up to the task of doing the job. So in Florida, we've taken action. Now in the state of Florida, all tenured professors must undergo review every 5 years and can be let go for poor performance. So we're fighting back. We've also eliminated DE&I from our public universities. They say it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. The way it's applied, it's ideology. It's discrimination, exclusion, and indoctrination. It has no place in our public institutions. So we fought back. Iowa is now fighting back on that. We need to make sure that's the law in every place in this country. We've also fought back against woke corporations. And these corporations, here's the thing. Republicans used to say, okay, we obviously want less government. It's government. If we just keep that in check, everything's fine. We don't have to really worry about anything else. And that may have been true at one time. But now you have the left trying to advance their agenda through business, through corporate America, through Wall Street banks like J.P. Morgan, who's supporting Nikki Haley, through companies like BlackRock, which is also supporting Nikki Haley. They have an idea of something called environment social governance. It's their way of using their economic power to advance policy changes, to advance a social agenda on this country. That is essentially imposing policies on us without going through the constitutional process. Did you elect anybody to these Wall Street banks? Do you have a chance to vote any of them out of office? No. But they want to go after your Second Amendment rights. They want to go after the rights of Christians to worship. They want to go on and on down the line, changing this society. In Florida, we kneecapped ESG. No ESG in our pension fund. No social credit scores. And we've made sure that people are protected from these companies trying to run roughshod over them. If we don't get smart about this, the left can lose elections and they'll still end up implementing their agenda. I'm not going to let the left have the nose under the tent in any of these issues. I'm going to fight them on all fronts. If they're going to try to do it through corporations, we're going to fight back against that. If they're going to try to do it through bureaucracy, we're going to fight back against that. If they're going to try to do it through Congress, we'll fight back against that. We are the free state of Florida because we've understood that the threats to freedom are not limited to what may happen in the legislative chamber. The threats to freedom are far more broad and far more pervasive, and we have to win against all of those threats if we want to give this country the new birth of freedom that it deserves. And so I will do that for you as the next president of the United States. And here's the deal. We are down now less than 3 weeks. If you look at what is going to happen in 2024, you know, we have a couple options. We can have the option with the former president being the nominee for a third time in a row, that the whole election will be about him, whole election will be about his behavior, whole election will be about all these different investigations and legal cases, which, look, I think they're unfair. I will fire Jack Smith on day one when I'm president. That is without saying. Nevertheless, the media and the Democrats, that's what they want the election to be about. They do not want Biden to face any accountability. They want him to be able to hide in the basement. And look, it may be someone other than Biden. If they feel like they need to replace, you know, that may end up happening. That's one of the reasons why I debated Gavin Newsom a month ago, because they could pull a rabbit out of their hat. But if that's what the election's about, the Democrats have a playbook. They are going to succeed in that playbook. They've proven that in how many elections since 2016 where Republicans have lost time and time again. Not in Iowa, not in Florida, but throughout the country with this playbook. So I don't think that that's a way that's going to be viable for us going forward. And here's the thing. Even if somehow he could surmount that, you have a lame duck president on day one. How are you going to be able to get things done? How are you going to be able to recruit personnel that you need? You know, a president is just one person. Yes, you have the vision. Yes, you have to make the decisions. Yes, you have to bring accountability. But you need a massive number of people around you in agencies, in the White House, to be able to carry out the vision. If you don't have that, it's not going to work. You need to have the humility to understand that you can't do it all by yourself. You know, when you have leaders who reject humility, you know, you don't want a King Saul as president of the United States. You want to make sure it's somebody that's grounded, that understands you're a servant, ultimately there doing God's will. That's what I understand the job of president to do. So I'm going to be able to recruit people from all across this country. We'll go in on day one, and we are going to upend this swamp in Washington. We're going to do it. And if you look at the things that we need to do, a lot of the things are things that the former president campaigned on in 2016 and didn't do. And I supported the policies, but we did not have a border wall built. Biden would not have been able to bring in 8 million people if we had a border wall constructed across the southern border. It's a physical fact of life. The swamp, not only did the swamp not get drained in those 4 years, the swamp is way worse today than it was in 2016. That's just the reality. And part of it is you go in there, these people are not going to give up power willingly. They've accumulated all this power in D.C. They're going to guard that. You've got to be focused. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to know the levers of power that you're going to pull. And this is a day after day after day thing to make sure that we return this government to we the people. But it does require statesmanship. It requires leadership. It is not just going to happen because you snap your finger. So I understand that. We've been able to do that in the state of Florida. The state of Florida, our budget, even though we have millions of more people than New York State, our budget is half the size of New York State's budget, and we have the lowest per capita government employees in the entire United States of America. And yet, when people move from New York to Florida, what do they tell me? They say, man, your services are better, your roads are better, your education is better. Well, how is it that we're able to do this with half the employees and half the cost? Because so much of government is not necessary. So much of it is largesse. And the federal government's a great example of that. So we understand how to do it. We've upended things. Your governor here, Governor Reynolds, who, I'm just happy that, you have a number of candidates running. She's chosen to endorse me. That should tell you something about our candidacy, that someone that's done such a great job here is supporting me. So you have that, and you got to do it. Also, in terms of bringing accountability to the swamp, I mean, he campaigned saying he was going to hold Hillary accountable, and then 2 weeks after the election said, forget about it, we're not going to do it. Well, I think that sent a message to the bureaucracy and the deep state that this is somebody that's not going to follow through on what he says. And I think that invited a lot of the misconduct that we've seen by some of these career bureaucrats, because they just figured that they were bulletproof. And you know what? None of them are ever held accountable for any of the stuff that they did during the Trump administration. So we've got a lot of work to do, but we've got to get it done. Ultimately, you either produce these results or you don't. To sit here and have slogans and campaign and say all this stuff, that's fine. I want to bring it all in for a landing. And that's what I did in Florida. Everything I promised to do, I delivered on. 100% of the promises finished and done and delivered. And I'm the only one running that has beaten the left across the board on issue after issue. That's what it's going to take to turn this country around. These folks aren't just going to roll over. They're going to fight every step of the way to keep their power and to keep taking this country in a bad direction. So I need your support. We can get this done. I see all the people that have signed up for us. We've got a massive number of folks. We hope some of you will sign up today before you leave and recruit more people to the fold. This will reverberate the Iowa caucus, not just across the country, but really across the world. So you have an opportunity to do that. And I'm motivated to run because I see us being in jeopardy of being the first generation of Americans to leave to our kids and grandkids an America less prosperous and less free than the one we inherited. And if that were to happen, we'd be the first generation of Americans ever to turn over to the next generation an America that was less prosperous and less free. Because all throughout our history, every generation of Americans has stepped up. They've sacrificed when freedom was on the line, and they did what needed to do so that they can pass on freedom to the next generation. That's what we have to do now. Our founding fathers understood this. When Benjamin Franklin walked out of the Constitutional Convention after they framed the Constitution in Philadelphia, he was asked, did you give us a republic or a monarchy? And his answer was a republic if you can keep it. They understood you could have the best Constitution in the world. You could have the best Declaration of Independence in the world. These things don't run on autopilot. They require every generation of Americans to step up and do what it takes, and including sometimes put on a uniform, risk your life, and even give the last full measure of devotion for service to this country. Now, we're not called upon to make sacrifices of that nature, but what we are called upon to do is to preserve what George Washington called the sacred fire of liberty. This was a fire that burned in Independence Hall in 1776 when 56 men pledged their lives, their fortune, and their sacred honor to establish a new nation conceived in liberty. It's a fire that burned at a cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, where our nation's first Republican president pledged this nation to a new birth of freedom. It's a fire that burned on the beaches of Normandy when a merry band of brothers stormed the shores, defeated Nazi Germany, and preserved liberty throughout the world. It's a fire that burned in 1987 at the foot of the Berlin Wall when a resolute Republican president stood in front of that wall and said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall, and eventually led to the destruction of the Soviet Union. This is our responsibility, to carry this torch and to preserve the sacred fire of liberty. It's not a responsibility I walk away from. It's a responsibility that I welcome, because if not us, who? If not now, when? I will get the job done next November. I'll be a leader that you can always be proud of in the way I conduct myself in office. And as your president, I promise you this, I will not let you down. Thank you all. God bless. We'll take some questions. Well, I actually don't think that I think the most important issue facing the United States from a security perspective is actually China. Because if you look, Russia is a benefactor. China is a benefactor of Russia. China is a benefactor of Iran, who is obviously funding Hamas and Hezbollah that's led to the Israeli-Hamas fight. And so I think of all the issues, we've got to get the China issue right. If we don't get the China issue right, a lot of these other issues, they're just not going to matter as much because we're going to have lost. If you get the China issue right, I think all those other issues become much more manageable for us to deal with. So, for example, we cannot have a situation where we have the inadequate hard power in the Indo-Pacific. We're going to beef that up when I'm president. We have to have a policy that interdicts China's ability to not just invade Taiwan, but to go beyond the first island chain where they'd be able to dominate commerce in the Indo-Pacific. That will impact everybody here in this venue if they're able to do that, because they will use their economic power and leverage to influence countries all around the world. We've got to take our economic relationship with China and put it back in America's favor. We should not be dependent on them for so many different things in terms of what we need for this country. Medical, pharmaceutical, military, you name it, we depend on China for almost all of that. That is not a position of strength for this country. So we need to reshore these key things. You got to be strategic. You got to be methodical about it. But we cannot be in a situation where we're dependent on China for things that really depend on our national survival. And then you need to look at the influence they have here in the United States. They buy land. They're involved in the universities. Not in Florida, they're not, but they have had a huge impact here in the United States. So we've got to curtail their influence here. They should not be involved in our universities. They should not be involved in farmland or any of that other stuff. Now, what that'll do is that'll make it more difficult for them to fund Russia. It'll make it more difficult for them. Mostly what they're doing with Iran, they're buying oil on the black market from Iran. And that's a huge amount of revenue going into the Iranian coffers. I think Iran, we should totally shut off any money going to Iran. Why Biden is sending money there, I think is a huge mistake. Now, what Biden has done, first of all, I don't think you would even have the Russia-Ukraine conflict if Biden was a strong president. I mean, this has been a total joke. I think people were watching. I think hostile actors, whether it's Russia, China, whether it's Iran, they were watching Biden when he came into office. Obviously, he's no spring chicken. He had lost a step. Everyone saw that from the beginning. But his weakness in dealing with things like Afghanistan really invited a lot of the conflicts that we're seeing now. And his strategy has been a total failure. He is sending money over to Ukraine to pay for salaries for government bureaucrats in a foreign country. He's paying pension payments for that. How is that something, that is our role? When Trump was president, he provided defensive weapons so that they could deter Russia, and I supported Trump doing that. But to spend tens of billions of dollars on all these other things when we have issues here at home, we have an open border that has created huge problems for our security. How do you square that circle? So I think his policy has been a total failure. I don't see that he has a way. He's not articulating a vision as to what's going to happen. This $106 billion that they're asking for, a lot of that money is going to be going to things that are not in necessarily our national interest to be paying the salaries. They're actually funding small businesses in Ukraine. And they won't tell you where the money's going. They will not provide an audit or an accounting. And I remember when I served in Iraq, I remember a lot of money going through there. But then when I was a congressman, Afghanistan, we were able to do a lot of oversight over that. Huge amounts of waste of money going into Afghanistan over that 20-year period, and really was not respecting taxpayers at all. So Biden's kind of following that same, I think, playbook. I don't think what he's doing is going to be effective, and I think he continues to ignore our own open border here, which is a national security threat to this country, because you've had people that will be involved in terrorism that have come through this country.
Well, welcome to Iowa.
Good to be here.
Welcome to Iowa weather. Yeah, it is. Now, let me set up this question here. I'm a high school teacher, and I work full time. My wife here, she works full time. I even have to work part time just to make ends meet, to make American dream for my family. It's been difficult. It's been very difficult. And I just want to speak to the heart. I know we're down to 3 weeks left, and I think this is the most important question that we have is, do you respect families like us? Do you respect the middle class? I'm not looking for a handout from the government. Actually, I just want to be left alone and live my life. But, I just want to hear from your heart. Like,
Absolutely. What's your name?
John.
And what do you teach?
I teach a business and a computer.
Okay. Well, so here's what I'd say. I grew up as a blue-collar kid. My mom was a nurse. My dad worked. He installed the Nielsen ratings. They had to put that on the cable boxes back in the day. And basically, I had nothing handed to me. I worked minimum wage jobs as a teenager through college. And I did that because I always believed in America, if you work hard and you just put the nose to the grindstone, doors are going to open for you. You're going to be able to get ahead. And I believed that then. I wonder if I was in that same position now, whether I would believe that, because it seems to me families like you are doing everything right, you're working hard, and you're falling further and further behind. And when that happens, this country doesn't work. You have to have, look, there's going to be people that may not want to work and they expect things. You're not one of those. But when people are doing it right, when they're getting the most out of their God-given ability and they're falling further and further behind, that means the American dream is not alive and well in this country. And if we can't solve that problem, then we're just not going to succeed as a country. So I will be focused on families like yours because that's where I came from. That's how I see the lens through everything. I had opportunities to make a lot of money at one point, and I decided to serve in the Navy after 9/11 because I thought it was important. Our nation was in crisis. I wanted to do whatever I could to participate. We ended up deploying to Iraq and did some other stuff. And it was a worthwhile experience. It was meaningful to me because I love the country. I love wearing the cloth of the uniform. It was not financially lucrative for me, of course, and I could have done better. And then as a congressman, my view was I didn't want to be part of the swamp. So on day one, I declined the congressional pension. I declined the health care because they were making other people do Obamacare, but at the time Congress was exempt from Obamacare. I thought that was wrong, and I said, hey, I'm a citizen. I'm not somebody that's in a separate ruling class. We didn't trade stocks during my time in Congress like a lot of these congressmen do. I think it should be banned to have congressmen trading the stocks. They're making a fortune off all this stuff, and it just creates bad mistrust. So I didn't do that either. And so I've just always viewed myself as a servant leader. I am not somebody that is above the people. I am part of American society and still have that blue-collar work ethic, and that's how I see the lens of everything. So, yes, I mean, and we've delivered in Florida. I think if you look, with teachers, I've increased teacher salaries every year since I've been governor by billions of dollars. No one had done that prior. We had relatively low salaries. We're now doing more and more on that. We did for police. What's that?
I'm one of them. I'm from Florida. I'm a teacher. Thank you.
You got money? Yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So, and then with the police, when they were defunding police around the country, I said, no, we're not going to do that. So we did, for 3 years in a row, we did $1,000 bonuses for all sworn law enforcement, firefighters, and EMTs in the state of Florida for 3 straight years. And so it's just showing we really appreciate it. And I think even though, we've had to deal with Biden inflation and everything, we're one of the few states where our income growth is actually higher than the inflation rate, which is not the norm throughout this country. So we've shown that it can be done in Florida, and we're going to bring that to the United States. But that ultimately is the key. If we can get folks like you to be able to get ahead, this country is going to do very well. If we don't, we're going to struggle. Yep.
Hi, my name's Dave Marks. First, thank you for your personal service in the military.
Sure.
I'm an engineer, and I moved here about 4.5 years ago from California. I live on the left.
What part?
science, as they call it, and stop all this craziness so we can have cheap gas and electricity and things like that?
It's a great question. We're going to reverse the Green New Deal on day one. It's done. So first of all, some of this stuff is not based in science. When Joe Biden says that he's more concerned with global warming than a nuclear war, that is insane. Are you kidding me? That is absolutely insane. And so, no, yes, we're not. So that involves a lot of things. Day one, we're going to open up oil, gas for production. So federal lands, Alaska, all the areas that people have wanted to do, we want to get gas lower. We said our goal is $2 gas in 2025. But it's even more than just what you pay at the pump. That's important. But the energy costs permeate the entire economy. Every product you buy is reflected in terms of the energy prices. Actually, I did the debate with Gavin Newsom. So what California has done is like Biden on steroids with respect to this stuff. And so he was attacking, oil companies, all this other stuff. And I just saw, I don't know what it was, like the American Petroleum Institute or something like that. They did a tweet saying, yeah, the governor Newsom's attacking us, but just know his hair gel wouldn't work without our petroleum products. And it's true. It's in almost everything. So we're going to open up. And I think opening up is good for consumers. It's also good for general inflation rate, to lower inflation. But it is good for our national security. Biden's policies empower Russia, Iran, Venezuela, and China. If we're energy dominant and independent, that will weaken Russia, that will weaken Iran, that will weaken China, and that will weaken Venezuela. From a security perspective, it is a no-brainer. So we're going to do that, but we're also going to overturn these mandates. No electric vehicle mandates. We're going to reverse that. To force you to buy an electric vehicle is ridiculous. First of all, it's more expensive. Second of all, there's not a demand for this across the economy. So it's going to end up bankrupting the car companies because they're going to be forced to build cars that people don't want. I mean, before I was governor, I drove a Ford F-150. I didn't want that to be electric. I needed that to be internal combustion. And that's fine. That's how most people think. And here's how it's even more ridiculous. California has even gone further. So they've already mandated, it hasn't taken effect yet, but it will soon. They've already mandated that all new cars sold in the state of California must be electric vehicles. So you're not going to be able to buy, and what that'll do, that'll be expensive for the new cars. Then the used cars that are internal combustion, they're going to go through the roof because there's going to be a scarcity. But after they made that announcement, 2 days later, they did another announcement from California. They said, attention, all electric vehicle owners, do not plug in your EV. We do not have grid capacity right now because they have these rolling blackouts and they can't even get the stuff done. So we don't even have grid capacity to do this, even if somehow it was something people wanted to do. It will create rolling blackouts across this country if they do it. And I can tell you as governor of Florida, when we respond to hurricanes, the first obviously is just protecting life and limb. Sometimes people evacuate. Sometimes they choose not to. If they're behind and they're in harm's way, we have people go in. We effectuate rescues. We do all that. That goes without saying. But the next thing that we do is try to get the power back on as quickly as possible. Because even we had a Category 5 hurricane, Ian, hit Southwest Florida. Even in a Category 5, the vast, vast majority of people in that area did not get displaced from their homes, did not have, structural damage where they couldn't live in the home. And so if you get all them back online on the grid, the temperature goes down, the anxiety level goes down, everything is so much more manageable. If you have 1 million, 2 million people without power for 3, 4, 5 weeks, all of a sudden people get miserable. So we'll stage the linemen, we'll go ready, and we go in as soon as the thing goes. But to do that, I can't do it based on solar panels. I need reliable energy. I've got to be able to turn on the gas. That's just what you have to do. So in those situations, it's absolutely essential. So we need reliable, cheap energy. I think it's a no-brainer. We're going to do it. And here's the thing. Even the people even if you believe like Biden does that somehow global warming is worse than nuclear war, what has reduced carbon emissions in this country more than anything? It's been natural gas. As people use more gas, they don't have to use as much coal. It's a dramatic reduction. And if we exported LNG across the developing world, these folks are going to power up. I mean, they're not going to live at this standard of living forever. They have every right to want to have our standard of living. So as they electrify, if you're using natural gas instead of coal, that is going to be the biggest reduction that you can possibly do. And yet the left, they have an ideological objection to any fossil fuel. We are not going to be able to power our society in our lifetimes without fossil fuels. No matter what policies you do, it is required that we do that. So we're going to do that, and I think you're going to be very happy with our program. Yep. Lee? Okay. What school? Okay.
On in like New York or California or Minnesota or Michigan or whatever. We're like, where we don't see that because I think because he's made the state safe. And right now we have this migrant problem, and that's going to at some point that's got to change if they keep record numbers keep coming across. So my question to you is are you going to build a wall or what's your plan?
Yeah. Of course, we're going to stop the invasion. So a couple things. One, on like some of the crime. When we had the BLM riots in 2020, I immediately activated our National Guard in Florida. We let it be known, you're not burning down our cities. And you know what? It didn't happen. Now, Donald Trump, I think he was in Iowa when he said this the other day. He said that, he stood by and watched these cities burn down in 2020. And that's true. He stood by and did nothing while the cities burned down. He tweeted law and order. I can tell you, if I were president, I would have stopped those riots. I would not have let that happen. If you look at what's happened in places like Minneapolis, it's going to take decades for them to recover from what happened. It was a total catastrophe. President of the United States has not only the right but the responsibility to ensure domestic tranquility. That's in the Constitution. You have every right to do that. So I would have done that. I'm also going to mobilize federal law enforcement against these radical prosecutors. We're not going to let them keep their citizens at risk by not prosecuting bad guys or putting them back on the street. You can't live. We can't have a successful country if every urban area is a total disaster, like Philadelphia and Chicago and these places. And I get it in Florida. I don't even have to look on the TV because I run into people in Florida every time I'm out in public who will come up to me and say they moved from Philly, they moved from Chicago, they moved from New York, they moved from California, and they will tell me why they moved. They will tell me about the dysfunction and how they're happy to be in Florida. So that's that. On the immigration, you have to stop the invasion cold on day one, and you do that by declaring it to be a national emergency. You'll dispatch the military to the border. I'm going to authorize states to enforce immigration law. So we'll have Texas and all these others there to be able to push back. Biden has let in 8 million. We are going to send back the 8 million that came under Biden. That's going to be the goal for the first term. We will build the wall. And look, I mean, this was the core promise that Trump ran on, and he said Mexico was going to pay for the wall. And it didn't happen. And the media would be very tough on him on that. You can't get Mexico. And he would always say, yes, yes, yes. Now he's since said in this campaign there was no mechanism that he could have gotten Mexico to pay for it. Well, he should have been honest with you before, but that's actually not true. Yeah, Mexico's not going to fork over money. What you do is you impose fees on remittances that workers send to foreign countries. So you'll have people that are seasonal workers. They'll send money back to Mexico. Charge a fee on all those wire transfers. You'd raise billions of dollars a year. We'll plow that into building the border wall. But you need a wall across the whole border. Otherwise, you're going to continue to have a lot of these problems. But you've got to hold the Mexican drug cartels accountable for what they're doing. They are invading this country, and they are killing our citizens by the tens of thousands every year with fentanyl. And this is not something that is limited to people that are addicted to drugs. In fact, a lot of the young people that die from the fentanyl overdose die because they take something that they think is safe. Turns out it's laced with fentanyl, and it poisons them to death. One bad decision can lead to a fatality. and that's happening, and the people in D.C. just shrug their shoulders. They don't care about the carnage, and this is happening all across the country, not just at the border. Well, I care about it. I don't want to see our fellow citizens poisoned to death like they are with this. I think a president not only has a right, I think you have a responsibility to fight back. So we're going to categorize the drug cartels to be foreign terrorist organizations, and we're going to authorize the use of deadly military force against the Mexican drug cartels. You're going to see changes very quickly. Pensacola Christian. Okay.
So I went to school when Donald Trump was the president. Obviously, Biden's president now. My tuition's gone up $6,000 in the 2 years that Biden has been president because Donald Trump did everything through executive order. So everything has obviously been redone. Everything is all the economy that's not been good. What is your plan to get things done in Congress and the House?
And your name is what? Ashton, great question. So basically, he points out, and this is true, that 99% of what Trump did was through executive order. So what that meant was day one of the Biden administration, all of it got reversed on day one. Poof, done. You've got to be able to work with Congress to actually get this stuff done. And he obviously failed on Obamacare repeal and replace. They failed on immigration. They didn't do any immigration stuff, although he tried to ram through an amnesty of 1.9 million people. I oppose that. Most conservatives oppose that, and it didn't pass, which is good because it would have been destructive. And then really there weren't any legislative accomplishments other than the tax bill. I mean, that was the one thing that was done, and honestly, that was more of Paul Ryan's thing. So you've got to have a plan to be able to work with Congress, and part of it is if I'm the candidate, we're going to expand our majority in the House, and we will win the Senate. We're not going to have 60 votes in the Senate. We should have 60 if we hadn't blown all these races over the last however many cycles. But we're going to have Republican majorities, and I think we can have pretty big Republican majorities, but we won't have 60 senators. But what you do is Biden had 50 senators, and look at all the damage he did. How did he do it? He put it through the reconciliation process in the Senate where you only need 50 votes. And he expanded what could be shoved in there. So we're going to shove as much into that vehicle as we can. And that's going to involve a lot of stuff. It'll involve, obviously, making the tax rates permanent. It'll involve repealing Biden's nonsense, trillions of dollars worth of subsidies that we don't need, reducing the deficit. We will do our naval buildup probably through that multi-year to be able to deter China. And we're going to do national school choice all through that vehicle. That is something that will have staying power, and it's important to do. I also think there's other issues like the border where these Democrats, some of them are going to have to play ball with us. I think you're going to be able to get 60 because you have liberal voters in Manhattan and these places that are so sick of having people flooding their communities because it puts stress on health care, education, law and order, all the things that are quality of life. It really hurts. So I think we're going to be able to do that. But ultimately, you have to have an eye to what you can do through Congress. There are things you can do through executive. I mean, for example, we're going to be firing some of these bureaucrats who have misused their power. I'll do that myself. I mean, that's you don't need Congress for that. You can do it. So there's a lot you can do that will be permanent. But the executive orders, the change of policy, those will go back. Also, another reason why you need someone that can serve 2 terms, because even an executive order, if it's in for 8 years, it tends to stick more because more things grow up around it. A lot of the Trump stuff, he didn't even do till year 2, 3, or 4. Well, that was easy for them to come do. In fact, some of the stuff with the swamp, he didn't even do until December of 2020. It didn't even take effect. Of course, Biden is going to reverse that. But you got to be ready on day one. You got to have all the legislation lined up with the key people in the Congress. You got to have all the executive orders ready. A lot of ours will be reversing Biden stuff. And you got to have all the personnel ready. Thousands of people ready to go to get confirmed, get in there, and to start bringing this administrative state to heel once and for all. So time is of the essence. When you're dealing with Congress, as a 2-term president, you only have certain windows where you really can strike and do big things. You don't have a full 8 years where Congress is going to be producing at maximum. You have that first 100 to 150 days. You've got to be ready. You've got to strike then. Then you've got some other pockets of time in the first term. Then you get reelected. You have a crescendo where you get 6-9 months to be able to do the second term agenda. But then after the next midterm, you're a lame duck good luck on that at that point. So you have, of 8 years, you probably have about 1.5 to 2 years spread throughout those 8 years where you really can strike. So you've got to be ready. You got to have your ducks in the row, and you cannot get distracted with all this other stuff. And, you know, that was part of the thing with, you know, with Trump. He came into office, and we had 8 years of Obama. We had all these hopes. And his first full day in office, what did he spend his time doing? He was arguing with the media about the crowd size at his inauguration. We don't have time to get involved in those side issues. We have to use every minute at our disposal to be able to advance the cause and to change the country and get us on a better path. So I'll be a focused president on all this stuff. And that's one of the things I look at, like with Florida. People will say, well, you know, if you're president, what's going to happen with Florida? I'm like, first of all, we have good people. But even if we didn't, we have all this stuff. It's Florida's set for a generation because of what we did. And so our mindset was always about not only doing things in the here or now, but creating a future for freedom that's really going to be ingrained into the DNA of the state. And we did that successfully, and we're going to continue to see really good things out of the state of Florida during my tenure and even beyond. Well, it's interesting. So Social Security, Haley, I mean, man, some of the stuff she's saying about this is just unbelievable. She says it's an entitlement. She also said she would reduce benefits for current seniors, which is just outrageous, especially in a time of high inflation. Seniors will fall further. So I will not do that. We will protect Social Security for seniors. As the governor of Florida, I know a few people on Social Security, just with my... It's just kind of the way it is. But I know from personal experience. I mean, you know, my grandmother lived till 91. Social Security was her sole source of income. So when you have rising prices, the cost of living adjustment does not cover that. And so, but part of, I think, what we do need to do is lower the inflation, lower interest rates. That'll help Social Security's longevity, because you don't want to have to pay out the COLAs that are not going to keep pace with inflation. You'd rather just have no inflation and not have to pay as much. The dollars will actually go further for Social Security beneficiaries in a low inflation environment. So we're going to do that, but seniors will get the benefits. We know it's important, and we know that we have an obligation. And yeah, it's not an entitlement. You've paid into it, and that's 15% of every paycheck you've ever earned between what they take out of your end and the employer's end. But that's you paying that because the employer is paying that on your behalf. So that's 15% from the, and I remember the first time I got a paycheck when I was like 16. I'm like, where's this money going? I was like, wait a minute. It's a lot of money, and people pay into that. And so they pay into that with the understanding that when they reach age, they're going to be able to get the benefits. And so we gotta follow through on that promise. Yep. Yes.
My son lives in Fort Myers Beach, Florida.
Yep.
They suffered through Ian.
Yep.
I would not help them rebuild. I will say this, I was impressed with the electric company, how they got utilities back online is phenomenal. And we've been down there a couple of years. I've visited a number of times. It's a phenomenal community. And I appreciate what you've done in Florida. Sure. And just hoping you can do the same for our country.
We can.
Thank you very much for your
No, thank you. Appreciate it. So the Fort Myers stuff, you know, we had a situation there where massive Cat 5, it actually severed a causeway going to Sanibel Island in 3 different places, and it knocked out a bridge going to Pine Island entirely. And so the locals were being told, because these are not state bridges, they're local bridges, they were being told, you guys are out of luck for 6 months. And, you know, it's like if your whole life is on those islands, that's not a good answer. So they came to me, and they're like, hey, can you help us? Like, we just need something. And, you know, they were like, maybe you can run a ferry, maybe this, maybe that. I'm like, you know, well, I want to get these bridges done. So I brought in my guys. I was like, listen, this should not take 6 months. I was like, I don't want to hear anything about bureaucracy or red tape or excuses. Just get it done. And so the Pine Island Bridge, we took over the job, and it didn't take 6 months. The bridge was rebuilt and reopened in 3 days. The Sanibel was 2 weeks later. And that really helped prevent those communities from dying, because if they had to wait for 6 months, they would have died. And so there's still challenges there. Sanibel, man, I mean, there was so much damage there. But Capital is flowing down there. People are investing down there. It takes time, but that's going to be probably the best recovery for a Cat 5 storm on record, because Hurricane Andrew hit Homestead south of Miami-Dade in '92. It never recovered. To this day has not recovered in terms of what the trajectory that it was on. I think you're going to see Southwest Florida come back stronger. I mean, they've already done to a certain extent in some areas. I mean, literally 2 weeks after the storm, people are buying homes in Cape Coral left and right. I mean, it was unbelievable what was going on. It's a great place to live. But that's the type of know-how and refuse to take no for an answer that I'll bring to the presidency. So with the border wall, if we could build a bridge in 3 days, we're going to be able to build a border wall in 4 years. I mean, like, we'll be able to do that, okay? I will get it done. I'm not going to let the red tape stop us. We're going to get the job done. We'll make it happen.
What we see in the schools and what kids come out believing. Like, how do you undo, how do you change such a deeply entrenched liberal education system?
What's your name?
Lindsay.
Lindsay, well, it's a great question. Well, one, I would say in Florida, we embrace homeschool. So not only have we been very homeschool friendly, we, in our universal school choice ESAs, homeschool parents now can get into the education savings account. So that's a boon to them. They're able to buy materials and all this stuff. So it's really important. And we should welcome that in every state in the country. I think there's a role for the federal government, but I think a lot of it's going to have to be done at the state and local level. So in Florida, we have done parental rights legislation, both in terms of education, direction, curriculum transparency. We actually have a provision in Florida. You know what happened? There'll be like pornographic materials that show up in like a 5th grade classroom, and parents get it and they're concerned. They'll go to a school board meeting and they'll start reading this at the school, and the school board will shut them down. You can't read that. That's too graphic. Well, wait a minute. If you can't read it in a school board meeting, it's okay for a 5th grader to be having? That doesn't make sense. So we have a provision of law that says if a school board will not let something be shown or read in open session, then by definition, it should not be appropriate to be in school. I mean, like, that's just the reality. We've also done things like eliminate gender ideology and critical race theory in our K through 12 schools. It's just not appropriate. It's an agenda and it's wrong. We do have universal school choice, which I think is important because that gives parents the power to be able to make other choices. And not just with private scholarships. We have charter schools that are public schools but are not controlled by the districts or influenced by the teacher union. And so these are schools that are entitled to no student as a matter of right, no default enrollment. They've got to convince parents to send their kid to this charter school. And we have about 365,000 students in charter programs. If you took our 365,000 students and made them their own state, and these are students that are disproportionately low income, racial and ethnic minorities, they would rank in the top 5 in student achievement amongst all states. So it just shows you everyone can succeed. People just need to have the tools to be able to make the most of their God-given talent. Empowering those parents has made a huge difference in the state of Florida. We are going to do a nationwide school choice program. It's not going to be as extensive as Florida's, but what it is going to do is through corporate tax credits, it's going to probably be able to divert $25 to $50 billion into a scholarship fund that will go, and you have to set a criteria about income and all this stuff, but you'll be able to go into, you go in Iowa, but you could also go to Chicago, you could go to Philly and liberate some of these kids from these horrific school systems that are continuing to fail parents and students alike. That will be a huge deal. That'll be a big deal. So we're going to do that. And then higher education. You can't have a situation where you spend 18 years raising your kid, send them to college, and they undo everything in 4 years. Right. That doesn't work. That's not the purpose of college. Like, it used to never be thought that it was some type of indoctrination camp, but that's what a lot of them have turned into. In Florida, we talked about the things we've done with tenured professors, with the DE&I and all that. As president, you actually are in control of the accreditation approvals. And so what happens is universities are run the way they are because they have to get accredited. these are bodies that are just self-created. Nobody elected these people at anything, but they get approved to be accreditors, so they pursue an agenda through the accreditation regime. That ends when I'm president. We will stop that cold. We'll make sure that we have a good accreditation system in place that will facilitate the type of things we want to see in higher education, the pursuit of truth, academic rigor and integrity, and preparing our students to be citizens of the Republic. That was what the classical mission of higher education is, not to try to impose ideology on the student body. So we're going to do that, and it'll make a big difference. But it cannot solely be done when you talk K through 12 through higher ed. Federal government will have a role, but particularly K through 12, we are going to need to see Florida-style reforms in states. Iowa's done a lot of good stuff, and you guys will probably do a lot more, which is important. I think what we've done to be able to empower teachers to not be coerced into doing dues to these school unions, that's been huge because they now basically have free agency. They can cut a check or not, and they make those decisions. And the more and more these school unions are so partisan and they're pursuing an agenda, the more and more teachers are not going to want to join them. And I think that that needs to be the model for the rest of the United States of America.
I hear Nikki Haley talk about basically unfettered legal immigration. And the reason I think that the same corporations that are supporting her like that is because they don't have to pay into Social Security if you're on a immigrant work visa. How do we get control of this? Because that penalizes a college student that comes out of college. When you get out of college, if there's somebody that's 15% cheaper for you to hire as a corporation, they're not going to hire the American kid. They're going to hire some kid from India or some other foreign country. How do we get that under control?
Well, yeah, I mean, so Nikki Haley has said there should be no limits on immigration. She said you talk to CEOs and figure out what they want. CEOs want cheap labor. CEOs want to undercut American workers with foreign workers who will do the same job for much cheaper. That's what they want to do. We've seen it in the tech industry with H-1B visas. We've seen it in other things. That does not work. And we also have to look at legal immigration through the prism of how Europe has handled it, where they've allowed massive numbers of people to come from places like Northern Africa and the Middle East. You now have people that are not willing to assimilate into these countries, and they're creating huge social conflict there. We are not going to do that mass immigration into this country, whether it's legal or illegal. That is not the way you do immigration. You know, I think we have the highest percentage of foreign-born today than we've had in over 100 years. We have turned our back in the last many decades on assimilation. You have to assimilate into this country. It's very important. And if you're not somebody that believes in the values and the founding ideals of this country, well, God bless you, but you're not going to come to this country. That's the whole purpose of our country, to be able to pass that along. If you're not willing to assimilate into this country, then that's not something that's going to work for our society. So what I don't want to do is, and Haley will definitely allow this to happen, I don't want to see us become Europe, where they're bringing in a lot of people who do not want to assimilate and who don't share the values of the host country. That will kill this society. That will kill this country. So we're going to approach it much differently. We'll do everything on an individual basis. No mass migration into this country, period. It's not going to work. It hasn't worked anywhere else. And we need to really make sure that everything we're doing, whether it's the border, whether it's legal immigration, is that benefiting the American people or not? If it's not benefiting the American people, I don't want to do it. Foreigners do not have a right to come to this country. It's a privilege to come to this country. And if you're bringing in that is not helping the American people, then that's bad policy, and you shouldn't do it. So, for example, on these Gaza refugees, you have these left-wing members of Congress trying to say, bring in hundreds of thousands of people from the Gaza Strip. And I said, no. I said, why would we want to bring in people that the kids are taught to hate Jews, that Israel should be destroyed? It's a toxic culture. Bringing hundreds of thousands into this society is not benefiting you as Americans. It's not benefiting our country. It's ideology run amok. So I said, we will not do any of that. Haley initially said that you have to vet people, separate terrorists from not, then she backtracked in this. So I don't know where she is on that. But that is not the way that you do it. We just got to be smart, and we cannot be politically correct. when it comes to who comes into this country. So I want to thank everyone for coming. I'm asking for your support. I know we have cards if you can sign up to commit to caucus. If you're willing to do that, it's going to be very meaningful. Don't let the media try to act like somehow that your vote doesn't matter. Your vote matters. You have an opportunity to send a message to this country. You have an opportunity to really change the trajectory of politics in this country. And I can tell you this, if you go out and support me, if you bring friends, family, coworkers, neighbors out to support me and propel us to victory, you will not regret that you did that. We will do you proud. And I can tell you in Florida, I'll have people come up to me, and I have two different things. One will say, I voted for you in 2018. I had no idea you were going to do this good. That's the best vote I've ever cast. And then I have some other people who said, I didn't vote for you in the primary in 2018. That's the worst vote I ever took. I wish I would have voted for you in there. And that's what it'll be. You'll be proud that you voted for us. We'll do you proud, and we will turn this country around. God bless you. Thank you.